Oh boy, do I have one for you all today. Little game called Space Trader Merchant Marine. It was created by Hermitworks Studios in 2008. It was a Canadian-based company. Was, mind you. Founded by a couple of ex-BioWare members. It's, well, it's something. Is it a trading sim? Is it an FPS? Is it both? I don't know. Let's go with that. Let's go with both. Either way, it's interesting, and we'll be getting into that shortly. As always, per the usual review, we'll be going over the normal elements. Gameplay first and foremost, followed by sound design, story, and writing, given the fact this game has a little bit more of a narrative element than the last couple of ones I've reviewed. So I'm going to have to touch base on it. And then, finally, graphics. So buckle up, everyone. Make sure your money's in your mattress and read up on the latest stock portfolios, because here we go. So, first and foremost, the gameplay. It's a mix of open world that allows you to explore various locations, an FPS that sees you combating various individuals, and of course, a trading sim. This is interesting. So, the first thing on the menu is obviously the trading. It's how you make money and travel between planets, obviously, and is surprisingly intricate despite the initially very shallow appearance of how it works. So, you have two types of goods, contraband and standard, and both these will rise and fall in price in accordance with in-game events. Sometimes an advanced technology may cause a rise in demand for certain raw materials like iron and copper, while others such as the plague may see a rise in the need for contraband goods like antibiotics. There's even one in-game event where you can game the system and essentially drive the price of purified water up on Earth. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. And the merchants are divided between these accordingly. A merchant who deals in one type of goods will not deal in another. This combined with travel time, which requires you to carefully map out trade routes to meet the in-game goal, as each chapter has one, it's pretty damn good. Here's the thing, the trading time actually ended up screwing me over in the late game because I didn't manage it right, so I had to repeat it a couple of times. You also only have so much inventory, with more being able to be picked up at the mechanic. Strangely, you seem to carry it around on your person, the cargo base for your ship, but I chalked that off as just being a feature of the game's engine. Oddly enough, the weakest part of this is the banking system. At first, when I'd moved on to the next mission after losing all my hard-earned coin, I thought I'd be able to stash money in the bank to essentially collect interest and carry it over to the next chapter. Nope. You hard reset every single time, and it will start you with X amount of money. The primary purpose of the bank is to either loan you money, which you got to pay back, obviously, especially if you want to meet your in-game goal, or when you get taxed all to hell by the in-game government. More on that later. I think they missed an opportunity here for things like interest rates and stock investing, where you could just gamble a little bit of money, or even investing in rival trading companies while trying to ride a fine line with your current employers, as to not piss them off. But aside from that, it's surprisingly well thought out, though it does become fairly stale after a bit. The exploration part ain't great. The hubs you visit really don't evoke that sense of exploration like in, say, something such as Fallout 3 or Skyrim. But at the same time, you do have an opportunity to pick up goods scattered throughout each one and pick up side missions for extra cash, which is nice. But on the other hand, you're mostly just going to be bouncing between the traders, as the trade menu does have a fast travel that allows you to go between them, which is pretty handy now that I think about it. Though some things like the bartender aren't listed, so you do have to actually walk around the settlements. Speaking of the bartender, one of the things you can do to earn money is bounty hunting, which not only allows you to channel your inner Boba Fett, or at least being the we have Boba Fett at home version of a bounty hunter, and nab some extra cash and goods, which leads us to the combat portion of this game. This essentially drops you into an arena where you kill the grunts till the boss shows up, duel said boss, try to take them out, and then you steal their shit. So for this part, I've decided to start with movement, pretty bog standard, run, jump, crouch, though you're a little slower than I'd like for something like this, and controls are the standard WASD configuration, so again, not bad. Mouse feels nice, so. Gunplay's pretty bog standard, run around said arena, pick up weapons, 4 in total, pistol, shotgun, assault rifle, and a machine pistol. Selection ain't great, and while the guns aren't great to use, they're not bad, they're not great, you're often locked into using the assault rifle 99% of the time for the simple fact because it is the most flexible, being able to switch between automatic fire and sniping at targets. Outside of a few occasions where the shotgun came through and the pistol, which is your starting weapon, was able to knock out a baddie, using any of the other weapons will normally get you killed. Though it does have a somewhat arcadey feel to it, as you have a live system. Health and shields obviously can be replenished via pickups, radar, which makes tracking down enemies a lot easier, and the fact you fully replenish both your stock of extra magazines and what's loaded in your gun when you pick up a dropped weapon kind of lends to that. Although I will say there were times where I got confused as hell because I went to go reload my weapon, and apparently this is what happened. The HUD is located in a funny place, though. It's located towards the top instead of the bottom like most FPSs. So every time I try to check my health, shields, ammo, whatever, I would end up looking towards the bottom and then inevitably died because it kept throwing me off. So there is that. AI ain't great either. It's ranging from just plain stupid to where I could just snipe one of their buddies and they wouldn't notice, to scary smart and zeroing in on my position even though I'm probably well over 200-300 meters away. And most of my deaths didn't come from the boss, but it's mostly because I made a dumb mistake, or because massed weapons fire tore me apart because they grew a brain and figured out that rushing me with guns blazing was the best choice. What's even worse is they can too pick up health and shield power-ups, leading to some of the weaker enemies being harder than you'd initially think, and the tougher foes being just as, if not even more, tanky than the bosses. This, combined with the previously aforementioned issues, led to a lot of cheap moments. This isn't helped by the fact that some of these arenas feel badly balanced, either having a dearth of power-ups in one particular area, or having one location that has one health and one shield power-up and the rest of them are weapons, or having enemies spawn in on top of you, or even spawning on top of enemies after you've just been killed, which gets you your ass handed to you. It feels more like they took multiplayer maps and simply reused all of them for single player. So, yeah. The FPS mode isn't great, but it's not the worst I've played. Could have certainly used a little bit more polish. So the game plays uneven. How's the story? Alright, spoilers ahead. No, I'm not doing a timestamp. Just skip ahead to whenever I start the sound design. You've been warned. It's pretty straightforward. An organization knows the Ministry of Accounts, serves as a central government. Basically, it's just a big fuck-off bank with all that it implies. Hey, the bankers took over the world. Ooh. Anyways, you set out to become a merchant and eventually a master trader, but in order to do this, you need a ship. So, you get a ship, have to pay it off, and then you travel between the moon and Earth to do so. You get double-crossed by the person who sold you the ship, double-cross a double-crosser, and finally you reach master trader. That's a gross oversimplification of an already simple story, but what can you do? Honestly, the characters are fairly cliche and forgettable, ranging from femme fatale to greedy merchant to thug, blah 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 blah. Honestly, the most exciting part of the game was the last chapter, and that's just because the Ministry was actually stepping up and being a pain in my ass. Dialogue's not great, whether NPC or PC. In fact, the only real moment that sticks out to me was when a bartender didn't have any bounties for me, I believe, in the second chapter, and the response, I shit you not, the only response left in the dialogue box was, "Ah, fart." What are we, 3? Peak 2008 writing right there, folks. So, I was going through the footage looking for my usual bit for the intro, and as I was perusing through the FPS footage, I'd forgotten about this little bit when I was writing the script. So, one of the late game missions in the third chapter has you assist a colony of greeterbots, the in-game universe, or in-universe version of robots, androids, whatever they are. And there's a bunch of them that are rogue, and you go protect them from, I shit you not, John fucking Connor. Credit where credit's due. That's just funny on so many levels, because the boss's name is John Connor. Now, come to think of it, I'm honestly surprised they didn't get it for that one, but details. Anyways, I thought that was kind of amusing. Back to the show. Anywho, sound design's kind of hit and miss. Voices range from normal sounding to obnoxious, like wheezy nerd, blah, to the stereotypical seductive female, to just a regular dude. Though, from what I've seen in the credits, they only had like 2 people doing the voice work, so the fact they were able to get so much variation, despite how a lot of it sounds, is pretty impressive. Music's pretty bog standard techno music like what you'd see in some of the earlier Need for Speed titles, or a lot of early 2000s sci-fi games. Guns are also a bit hit and miss, ranging from the pistol sounding very hefty, like chunky boom boom, to the assault rifle sounding like I'm chucking cotton balls. No environmental sounds either, so the sound's kind of hit and miss. Not great. How's the graphics? Now normally I don't rag on a game for having lousy graphics, and usually draw from the standards at the time, but even I can't excuse how unpleasant this game is to look at. So let's get started. First of these, and the most obvious, are the game models. They're not pleasant to look at, to say the least, and seem like something out of the early 2000s that hadn't quite left the 90s. Clunky, chunky, not particularly emotive, and seemingly locked in that same pre-rendered expression on their face. Actually, scratch that. The games in the 90s had models that were more expressive. Tomb Raider comes to mind, as if you held down the fire button, Laura's expression would change from normal to gritting her teeth. The game also seems to use a stock 3 or 4 models for civilian NPCs, usually just recolored, and the ones usually look either like generic bad guys, or in the case of the Ministry, looks like the devs got it from Stormtroopers R Us. And the robots, they're just no, they look like something out of a kid's game. Though animation-wise, they seem pretty bog standard. Not super stiff, but at the same time, they're kind of lacking. The environments ain't great. A lot of them feel cold and sterile despite their futuristic layout, mostly consisting of corridors and rooms with a few environmental decorations, or some bottles of booze behind a counter, and some chairs signaling a bar, some crates with lift equipment indicating cargo rooms, various neon signs having generic ads or gibberish, or these weird anime eyes for one. Computer screens also seem to show the current exchange rate, but otherwise are completely static. For the most part, it's just ye old sci-fi space station with the usual hallways of gunmetal gray, with maybe the odd window or furnishing thrown in, or the stereotypical mall feel, with cheap marble, plants, and maybe some waterfalls. Though occasionally you might see something resembling a hint of creativity. I actually enjoyed visiting the moon Io, as it had a lava fall with a river of lava running through one of the central rooms and various glowing crystals, combined to help spruce up what seemed to be a generic red rock rooms and corridors. Look, I don't exactly expect to count the number of granules in a rock or see droplets of sweat running down a character's face, but come on, you could have made at least a little bit more of an effort, Hermitworks. For shame. For shame. And apparently the game was made in the Triple H engine. I've never heard of it up until now, but it seems to be either a Chinese, a Korean, or even a Japanese game engine. It does have a GitHub page, but I didn't really dig any deeper. There is multiplayer, but I didn't really mess with it much, and there's also challenges basically mirroring the campaign in terms of goals. All in all, Space Trader Merchant Marine strikes me as more of a proof of concept than an actual game. The mechanics, at least the trading ones, are an interesting side and seem to work well. But it's like someone went, hey, I've got this neat concept for a first-person trading game after playing a 4X game. Wouldn't it be cool if we also threw some Quake Arena into it? Maybe throw some Skyrim in? As the FPS and hub elements feel almost tacked on. Combine this with a weak story, and you've got a recipe for a relatively poor gaming experience. It feels sterile, like it has no soul. Though apparently it was also released on mobile at one point, which actually explains a few things. Hermitworks also apparently closed shop after the game's release, with what little information I have. It was primarily sourced from the Space Trader Wiki. This game had a lot of potential. And if it been made by an entirely different studio, or perhaps given more time and had a bit more passion, it might have turned out a lot better. Who knows? Maybe the current IP holders will give it a bit of love and make a sequel or even a remaster worth playing. If you do decide to play this, I recommend you wait for it to be on sale, as it's normally about $10, but I purchased it for less than $1, and it can be beaten in about 5-6 hours even with doing something like side quests, though honestly you're better off doing anything else. Literally. Anyways, I've been your host, Fallerz, the Salted VTuber, and I will see you all again soon. Peace out.